Hello, this is Robert Talbot, and welcome to the Principled Prosperity Podcast Show. In a world of negative news cycles, fear, competition, and scarcity, we will meet people who inspire us and teach us to live a better, more prosperous life through their experiences and principles of prosperity. This podcast is here to answer the question, what is true prosperity, and how can I live a more prosperous life? All right, so this is Dan Smith. He works for the Josiah White's Quakerdale Foundation, and I just want to introduce somebody who lives a prosperous, principled life. And so, Dan, it's great to get together with you today. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to talk with me. We'll just dive right in here. Can you briefly describe your company, who your ideal clients are, and the kinds of situations they find themselves in?
Well, the company, Josiah White's Quakerdale Foundation, is focused on helping people find significance in their philanthropy. Our job is to try to go to individuals who have either already supported the foundation or one of our ministries, check in with them and see how things are going as far as giving is concerned. Is what they're doing satisfying inwardly their desire to be significant in using what God has given them financially to help others have an impact on their lives, and then kind of tweak where their giving is going, whether it's for legacy gifts, for long-term planning, for planned giving, or whether it is enabling some sort of a mentoring process that wants to go on, or whether they're just really passionate about a particular type of ministry that serves a certain segment of people because they can relate to it from a past experience or a family member that's going through like cancer or kids or education or hunger, whatever that may be. And then we have the privilege of being able to go and try to make as close a connection with either a ministry partner that we're already working with or locate one for them that might be a good fit and put the two together. And it's just amazing to watch the joy that comes into people's lives when you help connect their heart to something they're passionate about and realizing that God is allowing me to take the resources He's given me to find healing and significance and help with something that matters to them. So I can't believe I get paid to do it. It's fun every morning to get up and try to figure out who will I be able to help accomplish what God's put in their heart. It's pretty cool.
That's great. And so you have been involved in building or developing a new sort of approach to helping organizations fundraise. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, one of the things that we discovered when Quakerdale, the parent company that split up into 5-6 different entities here in 2018, is that we went from one medium-sized nonprofit to 6 small ones. And the reality came for me, for my department, where basically it became, the foundation became this department, is we went from full-time staff of 4 to 4.5 people to 1 3/4. So how do we do the same processes for fundraising with just a person and 3/4 that once was done with 4, sometimes 5, without losing the level of giving that we're doing? And then the reality came is, well, wait a minute. All the other ones are going through the same things. Maybe what we need to do is re-examine how we're doing fundraising and come up with another structure that will allow the small nonprofit to be successful at raising funds without having to increase staff and hiring.
So that's a big deal for nonprofits that are trying to live and exist and move through the what's normally thought of as being a professional job.
Exactly.
Yeah. To thinking about how to do it in a different way. That's a big switch.
Well, when you're in a United Way or you're a university where you've got a budget, a 7-figure budget, to raise 8 and 9 figures over a period of time. That you can afford to have an approach that basically hires people with the right skill sets that can dedicate all of their time towards fundraising. And fundraising in those situations is just a small part of a bigger whole. Well, when you get to small nonprofits, it totally switches. The fundraising becomes a major part of your ability to exist rather than just a small component of what's going on, especially for the number of people that are dedicated towards what's happening. And so you will have a larger group of people that are doing ministry, a smaller number of people that are doing ministry and a larger number of people who have to do ministry plus fundraise. And that's where we found ourselves. So rather than trying to rather than trying to increase our staffing, we decided to examine what was going on and see if we could come up with another way of being able to accomplish the same thing, but with a smaller staff. And the result of that, we launched this January. It's called Building Your Tribe. And so the Building Your Tribe says what we need to do is, instead of looking at fundraising as being a series of tasks, let's look at it as an opportunity to serve. Instead of these tasks being done by professionals with skills, what if they could be done collaboratively between the small staff that we have and a group of volunteers or people in the community that believed in who we were. And so as we looked at each of these components, what we came up with was basically a paradigm that says that for us, Building Your Tribe is investing in a network of people who are like-minded, and they're passionate about who we are as people. They're passionate about what it is that we do, and they want to join us. And they want to join us in a way that allows them to be them. And when you take a look at that paradigm, it switches from a department that's accomplishing tasks to a community that's doing life together. And that really changes the whole complexity of what's going on in it, and it allows you to stay small. Because what you do is you grow your community, you don't increase your staff.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about that tribe issue and how that all works, because, a lot of times people think about fundraising as a lot of tasks to tick off, a lot of visits, a lot of things, a lot of work. So can you just do you mind expound a little bit how that fits and works together?
Yeah, community is all about relationship. And so we stepped back and said, is there a way that we can classify or take a snapshot, some sort of way of identifying where is that relationship? First of all, where's the relationship between myself and the people who either currently are or thinking about possibly joining us as volunteers or donors? And then where is their relationship to the organization? So it's not the organization to the people and the people to the organization. It's me as an individual to people who want to support and be a part of the organization, and their relationship to the organization, and which is a big shift. And it falls in one of 6 different categories. Misinformed, meaning that the information that they have isn't quite right. They think it is, and that's how they're acting on it. But there's something that needs to be changed.
Yeah. So misinformed. You're saying that the people that you're coming in contact with, they're on a continuum.
Yeah.
So they have in their mind, they're thinking about something about what a nonprofit, whether it's what you do, where you work, or what some other nonprofit that's learning these tasks, they have in their mind and maybe in their heart sometimes about what's going on there. And there's a continuum.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. If I said you were trying to learn about me and you said, oh, Dan's a rap singer, I mean, immediately you're putting all kinds of images and every concepts in your mind, and some of them may be true, but there's probably a good amount of them that are not true. And so there's some misinformation is there, or they may have read something or somebody told them something, and the way that came across, or the way that they heard it, leads them to a partial truth. Part of it's true, but part of it's not. Right. That happened to us when we switched from doing all of our services using state contracts to private contracts. the announcement came out that Quakerdale was no longer going to participate in the state contract process. And because that was a huge part of what we had done for so many years, people immediately thought, oh, Quakerdale closed. Well, no, we stopped doing state contracts and switched to doing the same thing privately, but we're still in business. Matter of fact, we're doing more than we ever have. It's just we're doing it differently. And so there was some misinformation. They were misinformed.
Okay.
And so in order to progress with the relationship, we had to handle that first before we could go any further. We got to make sure that everybody doesn't have things that will stand in the way or block that relationship, misinformation. Mm-hmm. So once that's taken care of, then the next level is uninformed. Well, if that's not true, then what is true would be a natural question that would come to the mind of the person that you're visiting with. So that's uninformed. When you're cultivating prospects for your community and people who might want to live life with you through supporting your charitable organization, the vast majority are going to start there. They're going to be uninformed. They have no clue about what you're doing. The next level after that one, then, of course, is informed. The information that I have is true. I may not know everything that's going on, but what information I do have is accurate. And it's going to allow me to use that information to go to the next level, which is interested. Once I get enough information about something, then I begin to think, you know what? This might really be something that I'd like to get involved with. So I'm in that interested state. Haven't made a decision to jump one way or the other, but right now I'm kind of leaning towards being involved in what you're doing. And then, of course, level 5 is involved itself. That's where I'm either a volunteer, I've donated, I've established a planned gift. I mean, there's all kinds of, I've subscribed to your newsletter. I've taken some sort of action that basically says, I want to make sure I know what you're doing. And if there's an opportunity for me to get involved with what you want to do, and I'm ready to go once I feel like there's a good fit for me and or my family, and that would be involved. The last level is called invested. And that's where I am so in on what's going on. I'm actually bringing other people in my network to the organization by inviting them. When you get excited about something and there's something that's really cool that's happening in your life, one, you can't keep quiet about it. You got to tell people. And then if there's any way that they can experience the same thing, your natural tendency is to say, well, come on and join me, or come be a part of this too. And that's your invested people. That's the highest relationship that you have on the continuum. So once we've figured where that's out, that gives us a way of establishing, so what is my relationship to the person that I'm working with? At what level? Because in order to lead, you got to go there first, not push. And when we try to move people in a relationship that is ahead of where we are on the continuum, what you find is it becomes more manipulation and pressure rather than invitation. But if I'm ahead of the process, so for instance, if there's somebody that's misinformed, the first thing I want to do is go ahead and correct that bad information and allow them to go ahead and drop it. I can't be asking for a donation. Why would they want to donate to something that they're not really sure that's going on? But if I can correct that and get them to where they're uninformed, now my next job is to then go ahead and get them good information to replace the bad. Once they've got the good information, I want to try to tailor make the information I'm getting to them from this point to try to move them to interested. Once they show an interest of possibly being involved, then I want to present with them the different opportunities and try to match up how they can be involved with who they are and how they were. So now what I'm doing is trying to move them from interested into involved. And then once they take that step, hopefully I want to make their experience so awesome about what they're doing and so excited about what's going on that they can't help but tell the people that they live with and do life with about what they're doing and the excitement that's coming, the fulfilling that's happening, and they will naturally become inviters and they will move themselves to invest it. And so what's really cool about this is the relationship, which all relationships work this way. By using this continuum, I can take somebody who is standoffish and wants absolutely nothing to do with the organization because they got bad information, and they will eventually move themselves to where they are beginning to invite and include people on their own without me doing anything, become the organization. And that is community.
And so that process, it's true in all areas of life. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
you've taken something to say, how do you build relationship? I mean, it's that same thing when if we're sharing about our lives together, or about how to encourage someone to be involved in a great cause, or maybe your business, or anything. This relationship continuum is a vital role.
Exactly.
So when we talk about the tribe part,
Hmm.
so how does that? Let's just kind of take
Okay.
those steps, and then let's talk about the tribe part and
Okay.
how a
Yeah.
small organization could do this differently, because it still kind of sounds like a big deal.
Yeah, it is. So here's where it becomes fun and different. Let's say I am going to start a brand new nonprofit. And so my staff is one.
Right.
How in the world am I going to raise a bunch of money in a timely fashion to support what it is that I want to do? I certainly can't hire anybody. However,
Right.
I have a network of people that I do with that fall in one of the first three uh, categories:
Okay.
disinformed, uninformed, or informed.
Hmm.
Okay. Or the first four, all the way to interested.
Okay.
So everybody that who knows me is going to follow one of those first. That's called my network.
Okay.
Okay. And so my network is people who think they know what I do, but don't really, have no clue about what I do, but they do know who I am, have some sort of relationship. They know actually fairly a good amount about me.
Hmm.
And our relationship is such that we already are doing other things together. So there might be that possibility of doing ministry together or doing this cause, charitable work together. And so they might be in the interested part of it, but they're all still just part of my network.
Okay.
What I want to do is I want to create a strategy to identify where they are in that network as far as the relationship continue is concerned, and grow one step at a time so that eventually they can move from my network to my team.
Okay.
My team are those people that are involved or invested.
Mm.
So the minute that I put on a fundraising event or I put on a charitable event, and I extend an invitation to some of the people that are in my network, and they say, yeah, I'll help you out with that. They have just moved from my network to my team.
Right.
From a relationship continuum, they've moved from hopefully interested to involved, or from involved invested, because somebody says, oh yeah, not only I'd be glad to help. By the way, is it okay if I bring some of my family members? Yeah. You see what they've done is they've moved themselves from seeing them being involved with what I'm doing to wanting to include other family members to do it.
Mm.
And so that's my team.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's
Now,
one.
that's one.
Uh-huh.
Now, if from that team, the last step is to create what's called fundraisers.
Okay.
That's who belongs to your tribe. So my network is just people I'm in relationship with. My team are those people who are working with me currently in my charitable work. My fundraisers are those people who said, you can count on me to do exactly what you've done with your relationships, I'm going to do with mine. So I'm going to begin cultivating my network to see who will be part of my team.
Okay.
And so that my team will eventually give birth to other fundraisers. So when you look at a number aspect like this, if I limit my deep personal relationships to 12 people, and each of those people do the same thing, I'm still just one paid employee. I now have 144 people that I'm working with,
Okay.
12 directly, and the other 132 indirectly through one of my 12. And so you can see very quickly how the exponential growth going from 12 to 144 to, I forget what 12 times 144 is.
A whole lot.
Yeah, it's really big, but I've absolutely done absolutely nothing other than working with my original 12.
Okay. So
Now,
that's so.
I wish I could claim uh, that this was my idea, but it comes right out of scripture. It's called discipleship.
Mm, okay.
That's all we're doing. We're just taking the principles of discipleship and applying them to charitable work.
Interesting.
So
So.
that's how the building your tribe. So the
Mhm.
tribe is just those 11 or 12 other individuals that are joining me to work with their networks, to bring people into their team, ask them to establish their own tribe by becoming a fellow fundraiser.
Okay. I think a lot of times people who are trying to start a program or running a small something program of that's making it that they want to make a difference with, they want to impact people or the community or things like that. The fundraising seems like it to them, it's a completely different job. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
It
Yeah,
so
absolutely. That's why there's really kind of, when you look at the online community, when it comes to fundraising, there are two big ways that you can do it: transactional or transformational. Transactional is your GoFundMe's. They're the place where you put out a great sell in terms of what's going on, and you try to get as much exposure as possible. And if somebody says, "Hey, that's kind of cool," you may or may not know them. Doesn't matter. They're going to go ahead and they're going to make a donation of $5 or more to what you're doing, and hopefully, 1.5 million people do that, and you raise this large number of money. Or you need beer if you're in Iowa. That'll get you $3+ million.
you might need to give a little background to
that. there was a cool thing that happened here probably a couple months ago, where a student got a sign that he held up on ESPN's coverage of a football game, saying, "Donate to this particular thing. I'm out of beer. I need some beer money." Well, about a month or so later after that, the whole thing turned into where he ended up raising over $3 million for the University of Iowa Children's Hospital as a result of that. Now, I would not recommend that as necessarily a way about GoFundMe or about doing things, but that's transactional. That guy doesn't know any of those people any more than he did when he started. But it was effective. It's important. It's a tool that you're going to have to use. It should be in your tool belt. But those. And if you're a larger organization, yeah, you could probably do that more as a regular part of what you're doing.
Yeah, you got 15,000 people, or you got 30,000 people as a university. You can send something out to everybody and say, "There's this little cause. Everybody give $10."
Yep.
Yeah.
But there's no relationship change between that. Now, however, what you can do is use a transactional approach to begin to start the process of seeing if those are potential people transformationally to become a part of your organization.
Yeah. So
because the minute they do that, from a relationship continuing standpoint, they've moved from uninformed to at least informed. And the fact that they've given almost makes them pseudo-involved. And what you can do then is use that as an opportunity to begin to develop a deeper relationship. So it's not that it's worthless, it's just a different approach. Okay. Right. Transformational fundraising is where I use the relationship. I work within the relationships that I have to present the opportunity for people to learn more or to get involved with what I'm doing, and it's for the long haul.
Yeah. So this kind, the transformational style is, you just drew out important fact is, it's the people you already know. We're not talking about going and talking to strangers or trying to talk them into anything. This is I think the kind of the way people think about fundraising a lot of times is, I got to go beg for money, and that's not, I don't think that's what you're talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, what happens is we still have to communicate the opportunity for people to get involved by making a donation. No question about it. That's always going to happen. The difference is between whether this is just a generic push out there to people I have no clue who they are, versus people I've cultivated a relationship with and will say, "Oh man, you bet, Dan. As a matter of fact, I would be willing to go ahead and share that on my social media or push it out for you, and let's see what we can do." Right. And so they move from just interested in what you're doing and what's happening to fully involved and almost invested because of the relationship that you have with them.
Yeah. Okay.
And what makes that fun is that that's replicable. I don't have to rebuild that relationship. I just need to maintain it. So one of the trainings that we do in building your tribe is, when we sit down and have an action plan for a person that we're in relationship with, the very first thing we do is, what do I need to do to affirm the importance of the relationship where it is right now with them, where they are? That's the first thing I do. The second thing is then what can I do to help grow that?
Okay.
And so now what I'm doing is saying, I am trying to serve you. I mean, I ask, because there's sometimes on my main appointments, I have no idea where it's going to go. And I'll just say, well, how are you doing? What can I do for you? And all of a sudden they let loose, a bunch of things are going on and my heart's moved by it. And I says, you know what? Quakerdale has this Hope for Healing Assistance Resource Assistance Network. Do you mind if I go ahead and put that out on that network and see if we can't help you get some help with what you're struggling through? And that's the end of the visit. Because at that particular point, I realized the reason God brought me there to talk with those people was not to ask them to be a part of our fundraising team. They're hurting. They don't know where to go next. They don't know what to do. They don't have a step. And I can then invest in them by trying to help them find what they need through this Hope for Healing network so that their life can grow and they can get past whatever it is this hurdle. There's nothing more rewarding than that, than to know that God used you to help somebody else out. Now, where is that relationship? Is it stronger than it was before? Absolutely. And whether they ever give a dime or more for the rest of their life really doesn't matter, because now they're a part of my community, and they have invited me to be a part of their community. And having value in people's lives and belonging is huge. And you never know where that's gonna lead.
And that's a mindset that isn't. A lot of times I think about scarcity, abundance, and the fact that a lot of people are sometimes hoarding or live in a kind of a fearful mindset that if something goes good for them, it's going to go bad for me, or I have to get mine first before I'll help someone else. And that's a lot of our culture. You need to agree with me or else you're on the outs. But the whole idea here is that when we find a way to serve others, we actually enrich our life as well.
Oh, exactly. Scripture is really, really clear that if you're hurting, find somebody else you can help heal.
Yeah.
And God will turn right around and bring to you the people that are going to help you.
So I think we're starting to get a little bit of taste of who you are, but could you spend a little bit of time just talking about your backstory? What's maybe a defining moment or something that inspires you to do what you're doing?
When let's see, there's a lot of things that I could share, but probably the most defining moment was in 2011. I switched from being a pastor of a small church in Applington to unemployed, looking to get back into computer software design. And I went to Houston for about 5-6 months, and to see if I could do something back there, because a lot was happening in that area. And I had a brother-in-law who was a part of the whole oil industry, and there was a lot of things that were happening in that area. I went back and I got involved in a ministry called Between Job Ministries. And what they did is they were a Christian employment service ministry that helped especially execs find that next opportunity to serve. And one of the things that they took you through was a self-branding exercise, where you wanted to try to come up with a phrase that defined who you were. And so there were several exercises and stuff that we went through, and I came out of that month process with the phrase connecting people with the resources they need to live life at its fullest. It's just a kind of rework of John 10:10. And when I wrote that down for the first time on a paper and then read it back to myself, it was like, that's it. Of all the times when I have been able, when I've experienced the most joy, of all the times when I felt the most successful or significance, when I felt like I actually had value, I was right in the middle of trying to connect somebody with a resource that they needed so that they could live life at its fullest. And that's completely changed what I do. I do what I do today because everything that's about me, everything I'm involved with is that.
So how does living out a prosperous mindset impact you? And do you have any principles specifically that maybe you haven't talked about already that you could share about that, about prosperity, a principled, prosperous life?
Yeah, the first thing is prosperity only happens when you stop living for yourself and start living for God. That's the number one thing. I am incredibly limited. I have all kinds of weaknesses. I have all kinds of inadequacies. I've been given some skills and abilities, but me in and of myself, I'm not worth much. But when you take the God that we have and give him control of who you are and what he can do through you because he knows you better than anything else, there really is nothing you can't do. All of a sudden you find yourself tackling things that you go, what? How did I get there? Because I never would have envisioned 10 years ago that I'd be the director of development for a foundation in Iowa, helping nonprofits all across the world learn how to raise funds by developing community. No way with that. And so that's probably the number one principle that I have is prosperity will never come as long as you're limiting yourself to working with what you have only. Yeah. You have to open it up to be able to be used by God to serve others. Then there is anything can happen.
So easy to get wrapped up in what we can't do instead of opening our minds to what could happen if we were just willing to think in a way that would have let that happen.
Yeah.
So if somebody was wanting to have a more principled, prosperous life, where would you recommend they go to find those people? How do you find those people to make as your tribe?
Well, first thing to do is get it out of the generics and basically say prosperous in what? Do I want to be prosperous in my spiritual life? Who do I know that could either do that for me or point me to where somebody I could talk to would help me be prosperous in that area of my life? Do I want to be prosperous in my marriage? Who do I need to get in contact with to help coach and mentor me to become the best husband I can be in that relationship? Do I want to be a good father? Who do I need to talk to that can come and help coach me to be the best father that Dan can be? Finances, who do I know that can help coach me in what's the best way of managing the resources I have so that I can maximize my finances for both myself as well as the things that God wants me to do with them. So pick an area of where you want to be prosperous. Don't try to do it yourself. Find the best people that can advise you with what you're doing, and then do life together. It's building your tribe.
Because we have gifts, and you have an abundance of gifts, some amazing background, not only in ministry, but in software and all those technology kinds of things that you can bring to the table, but it doesn't make you have to know everything, right?
No.
I mean, and that's a lot of wisdom to realize that we just don't have to know everything. There are people around us, and if we don't know who they are, we need to ask a friend who they would recommend us talk to, so that we can.
Well, and it's a lot more fun, and it takes so much stress and pressure off of yourself because it's okay for you not to know the answer, because I've got a community that's going to help me discover it.
Yes.
It completely eliminates this deep hole that we can drop into real quick when we feel like we have to be self-sufficient. Yeah. And that's not it at all.
That's big. That's a big thing. So let's parlay that a little bit back into the building your tribe thing, mm-hmm. and say, what's the number one biggest challenge your ideal client has?
It's going to have to get changed. There's just enough right into it that you'll accept it. But when you take a look at the overall aspect of what it is, or their perception about how things need to be or what they need to do or how things are supposed to work, most of it's going to have to change. And a lot of people don't take that step on becoming a part of something really cool and starting a new nonprofit, simply because when they do the analysis from the beginning, they self-eliminate themselves because it's based on bad information. And so the biggest thing that we're trying to do is try to get out to as many people as possible. What has God put in your heart? And if he is asking you to start something, let us come alongside you to see if we can't help you make that a reality. I think we've got some good insight on how that can happen.
Well, can you share a story of maybe how that's happened and with the building your tribe or that process? Can you just share a little example?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I started work with what was then Quakerdale, not the foundation, in 2012. And I was blessed by having 6 months to work with the gal who was in charge of the fundraising for Quakerdale for over 30 years. And I learned a ton about the process that are involved in doing traditional fundraising through a department concept. And so by understanding that, it allowed me to think differently in terms of, so what does it need to look like going forward? So over the next 6 years, from 2012 to 2018, I experimented with a lot of these concepts, just personally, and trying to put them to work. I can remember a donor visit that I did up north in the Minnesota area, where, boy, I had this great plan about how I was going to talk about this and that and the other thing, and we were going to just, I was really going to come back with a great donation or whatever, because everything just fit and so forth. Got up there, started with my principal, say, okay, no, I'm going to need to talk about them first because I really don't know them. Let's try to build that relationship and see if they're going to allow me to come in and be involved in their life before I ask them anything the other way. And we got to talking, and the person shared about a personal struggle that they were going through. And the whole point just totally changed. We prayed. We put it on the network. Probably a year or so later, everything finally got straightened around, and we got notification. I want to say like 6 to 8 months ago, something like that, that the person had put the foundation in their will. Now, is that going to happen every time? No. But what was really cool was for God to affirm, Dan, my job is to take care of the finance part of it. Your job is to take care of the relationship part of it. I can't do the relationship side, but I do have a cattle on 1,000 hills. And when it's necessary, I'll go ahead and sell a few and send that your way. But what I can't do is put you in relationship with people that just need some encouragement, that just need to know that they have value, that somebody that they had absolutely no idea who they were or what they're doing would come in, and actually God would use them to bring in what they needed to help them through the particular challenge that they were in. Now, obviously, as a former pastor, that's very rewarding. That's why I was doing the pastoring for so long. So that's probably one of the biggest examples of it. The next one that I would point to is we are currently working with 2 brand new foundations who are headquartered in the Des Moines area, but their ministries are in Africa. And it is really interesting to help those people change their mindset. In a coaching session, they'll say, Dan, I have this great contact. How do I get them to donate? Wait a minute. Remember what we've been talking about? Oh, okay. And so they'll go ahead and put some of these things in practice, and then you get this phone call back in your next coaching session. They go, oh, Dan, you won't believe what they do, because their English is a little broken, whatever. And just hear the excitement on the other end of it. Not that they got the donation, but how they've got this relationship with this person they never thought they would have before. And how that person is a business owner, and they're talking about going ahead and talking about how they might make it a focus of their philanthropic efforts for that business. So, I mean, it went in a whole different direction than he was ever thinking of it. But because he focused on trying to help make that person successful, it completely changed his relationship with them and their relationship to the organization.
Yeah, so they're normally thinking the transactional.
Yep, got to get money.
And when it moves to the transformational, then it opens up all kinds of avenues rather than hey, just give me a check and I'll see you next year or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, and the comment that he made that was so encouraging is it was something like, Dan, I can see us doing life together for a long time. And I said, that's exactly the whole point of this. What we're trying to do is you're trying to build a community and realizing now there's two of you where there once was one. What could happen if that two became 4 or 12, and that 12 became 144? What's going to happen? He says, I get it now.
Yeah.
But it is a major mind switch, because when you're working as a small nonprofit, you're going, how am I going to pay the bills?
Yep.
And that's a valid question.
That's right. Yep. And it doesn't always come just because you provide a good service. I mean,
right. Yeah.
Doing a good thing doesn't mean that somebody's going to donate to your cause or even know that you need their help.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and both of those processes, both transactional and transformational, are important. But the idea is that transformational is going to become the DNA of how we do life together in our community. Transactional is just one small process that we use to maybe identify potential people to become a part of our community, both of which raise money.
Yeah. Super.
Transformational raises community.
Yeah. So a community together is definitely going to be much more powerful.
And stable.
Okay, yeah, right. So
and stable. I mean, imagine if you were a small nonprofit and one single donor was responsible for 50 to 60% of your fundraising. That one person disappears, what happens? Panic sets in. Versus a community of 120 or 130. Not that you're working with all those people. Maybe you're only working with just a couple, but they're working with other people, working with other people. They're developing this community. I mean, it's going to take a major incident for all of those people for half of those 60% of those people to disappear. So the community aspect develops a stability that not only helps you financially, it helps you emotionally, it helps you spiritually, it helps you all different kinds of ways.
Yeah, because those folks are the ones who will, when something special happens, good or bad, they're going to be there for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're paying attention.
Yep.
All right. So as we kind of wrap things up here, appreciate you taking this time with me. What's the most important question your ideal client should be thinking about as they consider working with you?
Who am I? What is it that God? How is it that God has made me? And is this a fit for how God wants to use me going forward? Don't self-direct. Make sure that the steps that you're taking are in line with how God's made you, how God wants to use you, and this particular situation is the one He's asking you to be a part of. Because we're not the only noodle in the keg. There's a whole lot more out there. The question is this the one that God wants you to be a part of? And if people are coming with that attitude and we're coming on the other end, same thing. Is this people that God wants us to join what we're doing? Once a connection is made, it can't help but be extremely rewarding for both people, both the organization as well as the potential client.
Great. I'm just thinking about the idea. You talk a lot about God.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand you're a pastor.
Yeah.
So how does is there any organizations that aren't Christian that are focused on God? I mean, have you helped any that aren't? I mean, is there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, these whether you believe in God or not isn't the point. The point is this is definitely the way that we're made. I believe that God made us this way.
Right.
And so the principles have nothing to do with theological training. They have to do with psychological realities, truths. It's the way that it works. So, we've helped with fundraisers like for Rotary. We've helped with fundraisers for a care facility, an individual who had a fundraiser that they wanted to do independently. They had absolutely nothing to do with a church or a ministry or whatever. And these principles work the same, no matter whether you believe in God or not, or whether you believe in a different God or not. Truth is truth.
Okay. Okay.
And we have found this to work. I have yet to see a situation where it doesn't work.
Great. That's great. I appreciate you taking the time. I think those are really great principles that you're sharing. And it's really interesting to hear about your approach to be able to help smaller nonprofits, people who have a vision or something to impact their community. Is there a certain way that people would get in contact with you?
Yeah, I just started our website, quakerdalefoundation.org, and go ahead and take a look at some of the stuff that's there. And then there's the contact page, and you can either call me using the information that's on there or the email address that's there, and we can start a conversation that way.
Excellent.
That's the best way to get started, is go to our webpage,
All right.
quakerdalefoundation.org.
All right. Great. Thanks for the time.
You got
and
it.
appreciate hearing about the great things you're doing.
Glad to do it. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you for listening to the Principled Prosperity Podcast. You can find more podcasts like these at principledprosperitypodcast.com. This is Robert Talbot, and thank you for listening.